second gun. They knocked him over just before he could fire and pinned his arms to the floor. More men piled on. He expected their knives, but he could barely move beneath their weight. He could smell their bodies and their breath and the gunpowder in the air, and he could feel the hard ballistic armor that crushed down on him, and none of his clawing or tearing or biting could damage that armor or the men inside it. They grunted and cursed in Spanish, and they kept their voices low, and they had not fired a shot. He felt his lungs being squeezed empty, and still the men were piling on, heavier and heavier upon him until the last spark of his breath flickered and he could not catch it. Bradley thrashed and grunted against them. He entered the darkness cursing them, and he heard their voices above his own, profanities and nervous laughter. He awoke and opened his eyes and saw nothing but black. He was on his back and tried to sit up, but hit his head on something just a few inches from his face. He touched it with his hands. Fabric over metal. There was a smell he knew. His knees were bent, and he tried to straighten them, but the space was too small. When he tried to raise them, they too hit the low ceiling, and Bradley felt the panic gathering in his body. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Breath, sweet breath, calm. The panic sat and waited. Bradley had always suffered in close places, in sleeping bags and crowded elevators and below decks, as had his mother and their ancestors deep into history. He reached out and felt the curve of his enclosure and the smallness of the space. He heard one of the terriers yapping. "I'm in the barn," he thought. His fingers found a plastic crate, and when he got a hand into it he felt the familiar air compressor with its power cord wrapped snug around the bottom, and the spray can of tire treatment that smelled of cherry, and the rubber blade of the window wiper. The Cyclone, he thought. I'm in the trunk of my old Cyclone in the barn. 1970. Aftermarket trunk release. Broken. The panic launched, and Bradley shoved the crate away and braced both hands on the lid and pushed mightily, but it did not give. He wriggled over onto his front side and got his knees under him, and he drove his back up into the top. He felt the muscles of his thighs and groin flaring, but the lid was unmoved. He turned over, breathing fast and hard, strangling on the closeness. Sweat ran off his face and neck, and he felt it accumulating in the cleft below his larynx. He wondered how much oxygen was left. He heard voices from above him. He tried to calm his heart and listen to them, but he could not. The panic came again, and he chopped at the ceiling with both elbows, but the ceiling did not give. He flipped over again and again drove his back against the lid, but the trunk was Detroit built, and it gave not even the smallest sign of coming open. So he pushed up on his young, strong arms that could easily press his own weight and more, but they were no match for the steel. Bradley flipped over onto his back again and screamed the scream of the living, and he knew that if he screamed loud enough, the sound would rip a hole through the metal and he would be able to reach an arm through. And the lid lifted. He sat up and looked into the faces of men and the barrels of their guns. Most wore helmets or bandanas or balaclavas. Beyond them he saw the lights and rafters of his barn. Some of the men poked at him with their barrels. Erin stood not 10 feet away, one large armored man holding each of her arms, her nightgown torn and her feet bare and her eyes wild. Beyond her, along the far side, was the kennel, and behind the chain link the 12 dogs paced or stood or sat, and the terrier kept barking. He gathered himself to climb out, but a gun butt hit him square in the forehead, and he dropped back into place in the trunk and looked dizzily at the man who had hit him. "Excuse me, Deputy Jones. My name is Heriberto. You are now leaving because I have been asked to be merciful to you." He was tall and wide, his face below the eyes hidden by a bandana. His voice was soft and lilting. Bradley noted his new white athletic shoes, jeans, and the Mexican Army issue armored vest and helmet.